Hello, hello. Welcome to Human Design Coffee Talk.
Welcome, welcome.
All right, today is an episode with just me and Teresa.
Just the
So,
two of us.
solo cast, but not solo. We just don't have a guest. It's
Yeah.
just us.
We're going to jam out about nine-centered communication or nine-centered
Yeah,
communion. I've heard both.
communion. Yeah. And who knows where it'll go from there. Obviously, if you've been a listener of Coffee Talk, who knows where this conversation will go.
Yeah.
But we've really been jamming on nine-centered communication in the past week. Teresa and I just discussing random bits and bobs about it. And I did post today on Instagram stories to get people's like, what is nine-centered communication to you, or what are some experiences that you've had with it? Because what we see in the human design space a lot, and I'm mostly referring to Instagram, is hearing people talk about nine-centered communication, how they want nine-centered communication, they crave it, etc. And we're moving in the nine-centered, direction as far as communication, but like not a lot of people are talking about what is it? What does it mean for them? What is their example of it? And so instead of just using these words, how in some spaces, people just start using words and all of a sudden okay, here's an example. When you're like 10, 12, maybe younger, I don't know. And people just start talking about 69.
Such a wild example. But I see where
And,
you're going here.
and everyone's like, ooh, 69, and like 80% of the people actually don't even know what the hell 69 meant, but everyone's just like, yeah, 69 and laughing about it and using it and being like, my favorite number 69, ha ha ha, and then like there's just this essence in the air where you're like pretty certain that
None of us know.
none of us really know what 69 actually is.
Yeah.
Um,
It reminds me of like singing lyrics to Third Eye Blind when I was in fourth grade and being like, doing crystal meth and lift you up until you break. And I'm like, I don't actually know what crystal meth is.
yeah, yes. So, we want to demystify
I mean,
nine-centered communication.
this happens a lot in human design because I feel like it's cute because we're all learning a new language, we're all learning a new way to relate to people,
Hmm.
but then it's like a lot of us don't stop and ask, wait, what do you actually mean by that? Because nobody else wants to look stupid.
Right? Yeah,
Maybe that's just me.
exactly. Exactly.
Like, wait, what do you mean by that? I
Yeah.
remember with learning about the sacral response when they'd be like, do what lights you up, and I know that's very like in the pop
Hmm.
sector of human design, but still I'd be like, what does that actually mean? And everybody's saying it and I'm like, what does lighting up mean?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, exactly. So we need to have that talk around nine-centered communication,
Yeah.
communion.
And I want to preface this with I've listened to there is a lecture floating out there about this from Raw and I've
Hmm.
listened to
Hmm.
it. I could not pull actual quotes from it.
Mm-mm.
So I'm not referencing that. Raw might have a different way of expressing this, or whatever I'm saying is in my receptivity and is informed by what I listen to. I don't know. But I want to preface this isn't necessarily source material. This is Brandy and I's experience. And this is her and I teasing this out and trying to figure out what is it to us.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
source police, don't come
Yeah.
at us.
It's like we're 11 years old and we're
Yeah. Like explain it like a
outside.
child.
We're outside talking to each other like, so what is, 69? What do you think it is? What do you think it is?
I remember thinking about that and being like hearing it was a sex position and then being like, okay, so it's supposed to look like something. How does that even work? And I remember just my little child brain trying to
Hmm.
like that meme where, the
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
all the numbers are around her face. Anyways, okay.
Imagine my surprise when I learned about astrology and I'm a Cancer sun and saw the glyph for that. And I was like, what?
I remember seeing that too and thinking that same thing. And I think I teased one of my friends who was a Cancer. Sorry if you're
Like
out there.
this is
Sorry,
is this
Cancers.
real? Like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing with my life?
This is
This
my
is my
purpose.
symbol.
Can we talk about how I saw a meme that was like, saying something about how like 69 is so capitalism or something. Or like because it's like trying to be very productive and like get
Oh,
something
oh,
done
like
really
yeah,
quick,
yeah,
being
yeah,
productive with your
yeah.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, this conversation is taking a turn I did not expect.
Never mind the fact that it's enjoyable, but whatever.
It's not my cup of tea personally, but
Yeah, it's kind of difficult.
it's
Like,
awkward. You have to be like the same height.
right. And when you're younger, it just feel like it's when, when everyone's like whispering 69, it seems like something that we would have been doing a lot more of as
Yeah.
adults.
Yes. Like, why were children so obsessed with talking about that?
I'm like, actually, it's not as if you're on Spotify, I'm molding my hands around trying to be like, doesn't work like that.
There has to be very specific ratios.
Right. Yes.
Okay, back to our topic.
Back to nine-centered communication.
I think also, I feel like I have had some very specific moments that I can recall that
Mhm.
have been nine centered. And so that's where I'm coming from, is the difference in those communions versus other ones that I've had. You know, when you're talking to somebody and you just feel like, number one, they're on the defense and they're not
Mhm.
hearing you.
Mhm.
And number two, it's almost like your wires are crossed and like neither of you are hearing each other. And neither of you are really getting your points across because your protector part or your defensive part is so like up in arms
Mhm.
that there really isn't a lot of communion or connection even happening.
Yeah.
And even in a conflict, there still has to be like awareness in order to resolve a conflict.
Mhm.
And so I think a lot of the ways that we go about communion or communication are very seven centered for that reason, because a lot of us haven't been taught how to like honor the other person and listen to them versus just hear them, like actually listen to them, and also be able to be aware of yourself and how you're showing up and like the parts of you that are forward in this conflict or this communication or whatever. um yeah, and I'm just using conflict as an example. Of course you can have nine centered communion or communication outside of conflict, but I think that's just where it gets really difficult to still be nine centered.
Mhm. Mhm. It's really interesting to look at it because, when the voice gave this information to Ra and we start talking about this, I think it's so easy for people when they're using the term nine-centered communication to just be like, it's just a human design thing. Like, there's so much more. Even hearing you talk about like the protector parts, like there's so many other like modalities and therapies and things that go into like becoming a society where we're utilizing nine-centered ways, nine-centered communication, um, like parts work. It's not just like reading about nine-centered communication or just, awareness is a huge part of it, but you can't just read about it or be like, oh, I'm in human design and now I'm going to be a nine-centered being and I'm going to, automatically get inserted with the token that gives me nine-centered ways of being and communication. Like there's a lot of work that goes into it because you have to recognize those parts of yourself. So nine-centered communication for me is emotional intelligence. It's
Mhm.
emotional depth and understanding and awareness of yourself and the other person, anybody that you are communicating with, and being able to recognize what part of you is on the forefront. Oh, my child part, my protector part, these different parts of me. Oh, I'm feeling defensive, not being defensive, but recognizing the feelings and the emotionality around what's going on in that communion with that person.
And naming it. Some of the
Yeah.
most impactful conversations I've had with another person were in a time of conflict, but it was this experience of both of us letting our walls down and being really vulnerable in that moment and saying, I'm really feeling attacked by you right now, or
Hmm.
I'm feeling my own self-worth issues come up in this dynamic right now, or even acknowledging like, I know this is probably not what you meant, but this is the story that I'm telling myself about what you're
Hmm.
saying. um And I think it's also just having an awareness of differentiation and knowing that everybody's going to handle communication differently than you. And I've been in conflict situations where I feel like I'm definitely communicating with a undefined solar plexus, even if I don't know that for sure. It just the mechanics of it, I feel like that's what's happening. And I can feel that my emotions are overpowering that other person. And I've caught myself and been like, I realize that my emotions are coming across as very passionate and very intense right now. And that could be a lot for you. And just know that I'm not meaning to direct it at you. I'm this is just how I act, and I'm not mad at you just because I'm acting very passionate in this
Mm-hmm.
moment. And just I think it's hard when people don't have the language of human design because that's the specific situation I'm talking about was like something that happened at work and I was like very upset about it and very passionate and my wave was going off, it was really intense and I could feel that my emotions were severely impacting the person that I was trying to communicate with. And I think just naming that, from what I can tell, put the other person at ease.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't know for sure if they're an undefined solar plexus. It just seemed like it by their body language and how they were behaving with my reaction. And I could see how just saying, like, I'm not mad at you, just so you know, I'm just a very passionate person and this is how I express.
Yeah.
They were like, like deep sigh after that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that can be rare. I know before human design, I wouldn't have had that awareness to say that to somebody because I would have like let my emotions be the biggest thing in the room and I would want them to be, it's like I want everybody to know how upset I am. And I'm going to make that very clear. And I'm going to make everybody else suffer because I'm so upset.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I don't care that this is negatively impacting people because I want people to be in this experience with me.
Right. And
Not that I
then,
knew that that was happening, but like,
right, right. And that's when it can kind of fall victim-y. It can feel kind of victim-y, when you're not being, when you just can't recognize it.
hmm
Others can see that. Um, uh, it's interesting being like recognizing our part in it and how we can shift when we're feeling a way or expressing it or naming it. I sent an email this week um, where I was very angry with the process, and my anger might have come across in this email. And at the bottom of the email, I wrote, if you sense my frustrations, it's not with you personally, it's with this entire process, just like putting it out there, not just being bitter and angry in an email and sending it and being like, fuck you. And I was like, hey, if you can sense my frustration, I am frustrated with this process.
Yeah.
Not, this isn't a personal attack. You're just doing your thing, but I'm allowed to not be okay with it.
100%. I feel like ways that I like to practice, especially at work, because I'm a bartender and a server, and I like to joke that I gentle parent my customers because like let's say for example our ticket times are running really long in the kitchen. I don't have control over that as a server, but I am also talking to somebody who is probably really hangry and annoyed that their food's taking a long time. And by acknowledging that and saying like I totally get why you're upset. I would be upset in this situation too. Like, we're a team. We're in this together. I can't make my kitchen go any faster. I wish they could, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
That like immediately diffuses the situation. So I think sometimes if you just recognize that we all have child parts and when we're in a moment of intense emotions or conflict or not getting our way about something, that child part is coming out.
Mhm.
And there has to be this like mature adult self that comes forward and takes over the situation. And I feel like even in your example, Brandy, saying like just naming that was like your adult self coming forward and saying, I know this isn't your fault,
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
I'm not upset with you.
Right. And even like with you, with your customers, like recognizing and naming and acknowledging how that person may be feeling because they might not be comfortable to tell you that. And you be like, yeah, this is really frustrating not getting your food this fast. I know the kitchen's, and they're like,
Yeah.
wow. It's just kind of like everybody can breathe.
Yeah.
You know, there's not everybody on this high alert waiting to like let out their frustrations, because what are they going to do at the end of the, eating at your table? They're going to take their frustration out on your tip.
100%.
You know, not like
That
that's at the forefront of your mind, but they're going to find some way. Everybody is, if you're listening to this, you've done it. If you don't speak it or say it, or it's not named or claimed, you're going to find some avenue, little sneaky avenue of letting it out just so you can feel better.
right.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then same when you're on we could segue into like setting boundaries in nine-centered, communication. And when you're speaking with somebody who doesn't have these awarenesses, who you can't expect these things upon other people. But being in your own and stating how you feel and setting your boundaries in communication can really like influence others to do that. I had a situation where I was speaking to somebody and they didn't like what I had to say, a decision that I had made, that I was final on this decision. And this person that I was speaking to got very defensive and tried to start telling me how I feel.
Mm.
And I just said, I'm not going to interact with that part of you. And then this person tried to like round two, just right after tried to set a hard boundary. This person started speaking again, telling me how this doesn't affect me, etc. And I said, I just told you that I am not going to participate in a conversation with this part of you. We need to move
Mm.
on to the next thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because because it was going to bring me out. Like I could have even just like,
You could have
taken
matched
off
that.
my taken off my earrings and fucking fight. But I'm
Yeah.
not, you know,
Because
I'm
that's what ends
I'm
up happening.
recognizing, yeah, I'm
Usually.
recognizing that this was like a child part of this person coming out and trying to defend and be defensive and feeling like wounded. And I see that. And I said, I see that this is not a part of you that is feeling very heard or nurtured. But that part of you doesn't get to be in this conversation with me. I'm not having a conversation with a 5-year-old part of yourself.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because it's really easy to like I've been there so many
Oh yeah,
times. Like it's
hundreds.
still hard for me. Like I notice it in my relationship probably the most just because that's the person I'm engaging with the most and I feel really safe with him. And so I feel like when you feel safe with somebody, you kind of allow those parts to
Mm-hmm.
come out. And
Mm-hmm.
I do have to name it. Yeah, like pretty much every time it happens, I still have to name it. And it's not, it's also for his benefit, but it's for my own self awareness too. And I've had to stop conversations before because I'm like, I'm incapable of shifting out of this
Mm-hmm.
child part right now or this rebellious teenage part right
Yeah.
now. And I'm
Yeah.
incapable of having an adult conversation. So we're
Yeah.
just this is my adult self interjecting and removing me
Yeah.
from this dynamic because I need
Yeah.
to process my emotions and then come back to it,
Yeah.
you know?
And yeah. And we can look at our openness to kind of point to things that might be a little louder,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
defensiveness.
Awareness of the not self. There was an interaction that I had with somebody who is in human design and it is very aware of all of this. And even with all of our tools, we still had like a pretty gnarly back and forth for a little while. And then we both had to come to recognizing where our not self is showing up. And I think that's also like letting down your walls. You know,
Mm.
if you're talking to somebody in human design, we all want to act like we're immune to the not self.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I'm so awakened that I'm not affected by the not self.
Yeah. Not
Anybody who
self.
says that, unless they're like 20 years in, and even then I'd be like, it still shows up.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you get better at like not acting on it, of course,
Uh-huh.
or not speaking from it. But I I think it's going to show up forever. It's always there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that's when it comes up the most is usually in conflict or in when you're in defense mode.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And just having two people be able to say, "Oh, I was really talking from my not self just now," you know, or owning
Mm-hmm.
it and just being
Mm-hmm.
like, that was a not self part of me. Like, let's
Mm-hmm.
move past this together. That is really helpful.
or that was just a part of me that wasn't feeling very heard, or I'm feeling hurt
Mm-hmm.
by something and I just want to stab you back,
Yeah.
or something that you did makes me feel a certain way. And, you know, instead
Mm,
of like, because I think people don't realize that when they're speaking or when they're complaining, or, we can see it. You can
yeah.
see it. And I have so much compassion for those parts of people, but we can see your little selves that are just so wounded and hurt. And that's all I can see and all I can hear. I have empathy for that part of the person, but it's hard for me to take you seriously if you're trying to stand on something,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. How does it feel to you as a defined ego when you're in a conflict with an open ego? It's okay. We can laugh.
I I just have that awareness of my definition to where I'm just like, I hear you, you know. Mm, I just can, it's loud on the other person's end. And I have to restrain. I feel like I need to restrain myself even more from really just because it's easy for me to flip into like, not self themes of even defined ego real quickly to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, oh, all I need to do is just give you a little shake, man, and it'll feel like an earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel compassion because I can see their conditioning. I can see that that's not them. I can feel when I'm around an undefined ego. 99.9% of the time, I'm spot on, with who has ego definition or who doesn't. It's
Yeah.
very rare that I don't. Um, but with an undefined ego, it's like I can just see the themes of the undefined ego just playing through. I can see the conditioning. I can see why they want the thing. I can see why they're trying to fight with me or argue or prove. They're always trying to prove themselves and to like garner some belonging,
Yeah.
you know, like holding on to like wanting to belong. And I'm just like, let that go.
Yeah.
Like, that's not the part of you that needs to be like, in this right now.
Yeah. As an open ego, that is my Achilles heel, is not trying to prove myself when I'm in a conflict.
Hmm.
And it's a constant awareness for me, like an awareness practice to say, what am I trying to prove right now? Why am I trying to prove this? And how can I be more honest in this exchange?
Hmm.
Because to me, like trying to prove something is just a cover up of something I'm really feeling
Hmm.
that I don't want to name. It's like, I'm going to try to prove that I'm right because I feel stupid, because I feel like I did something wrong and I actually don't want to admit that I did something wrong.
Hmm.
Or somebody's setting a boundary with me that I don't like. So I'm going to try to prove why I deserve to be here or
Yes.
why I deserve a
Yes.
different scenario
Yeah. Yeah.
or why I deserve like special treatment in
Yeah.
this scenario or
Hmm.
whatever. And instead of just accepting the boundary that somebody is trying to set, I try to go around that somehow.
Well, and a lot of times when that happens is your people are bypassing taking any accountability or responsibility for why the boundary is needing to be set.
Accountability is probably one of the biggest things about nine-centered communication.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because I
It
mean,
can
if
be
you see it, if you look at the, conversations or themes and things that you see out there, and they're just dodging accountability and blaming. There's blame, there's lack of accountability, there's defensiveness, there's this and a lot of this is like focused around the ego center, right? There's a lot of it that's like, well, if I can't belong, then nobody needs to feel like they belong with you. So let's out you. And I'm like,
Mhm.
you're really gonna go after tribal people like that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's ego, like we could even go through all of the themes of the centers. I think we
Oh,
hear like the ego and the solar plexus, I think, are the
the
loudest when it
loudest.
comes
Yeah.
to interpersonal dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
But everything else can also shine through. I feel like with the solar plexus, I notice people not wanting to be honest. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
even as a defined solar plexus, what I've noticed with undefined is they'll be like very apologetic to me, or they kind of
Guilty.
just want me to shut up. So they'll say whatever they can to get me to stop confronting them.
Mm-hmm.
And which a lot of times will end up being lying to me.
Yep.
And that is the trigger for me when somebody's
Mm-hmm.
lying to my face and I can tell. And I'm like, you just don't want to have this confrontation right now. So you're just trying to appease me and placate to me and so that you can make it go away.
Mm-hmm.
But I also get that not everybody has the same capacity as me for confrontation. And so even on my end, that's an awareness that I have to garner and carry is like, I can't force somebody to be somewhere that they're not. All I can do is like hold them accountable and attempt to have a nine-centered communication with somebody, even if they're not giving me that in return.
Right. Even as an undefined ego myself, I mean, I'm guilty of doing that. And I also, as I'm
I mean, an undefined
actively
solar
or
plexus.
undefined solar plexus, that's what I meant. I'm actively aware of my deconditioning process around my solar plexus. So I'm getting more comfortable with confrontation. I also can sense when somebody is undefined emotional. And I have to be aware of like not pushing too hard too, just because I'm comfortable with it,
Yeah.
you know, but also maintaining my integrity and my boundaries and how, finding the balance. It's just awareness, it's just like this spectrum
That's,
of awareness.
yeah.
It's like how, I don't want to push too hard. I don't want to, yeah.
That's really, I think, obviously the crux of this is awareness. And I
Mm-hmm.
think where human design has really helped me in my communication is having that awareness because in the past, before human design, I maybe would just like assume everybody's designed the way I am.
Mm-hmm.
Assume everybody can handle the same kind of confrontational emotional energy that I can, or um, have access to their truth, or even I wouldn't give myself time to
Mm-hmm.
simmer. Like I don't always have access to truth. I have to wait to know how I feel about things. And I would try to force myself to know how I felt in the moment so that I could have a confrontation and try to force a confrontation too early. Cause that's also a thing too, is like if I don't know what my truth is, I'm not ready to have that confrontation with somebody. And
Yep.
having that awareness and being able to express that, hey, I have not reached clarity yet. And also on the other end of it, sometimes I might be ready for something another defined emotional might not be, and I'm like, oh shit, that's really uncomfortable that I have to sit in my awareness that I'm ready and they're not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you cannot force a defined emotionals process. You cannot force them to be ready for a confrontation,
Mm-mm.
even if it seems like they're avoiding it to you. That's not
Mm-hmm.
your call.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think sometimes even just opening up that space, that is the big difference that I've noticed with people in human design versus people that aren't, is the awareness of time and needing to wait for clarity or needing to wait for a response, even,
Mm-hmm.
and honoring that and not trying to force somebody to move faster than they need to.
Because we've talked about it before also, like even defined emotionals can avoid confrontation.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So it's finding that where's the line? Where's the, not the line, the clarity for are you avoiding or are you just in your process?
Right. And that's a nuance. And sometimes you do need another person to kind of like, and maybe this is just my experience because I also have a sacral, so I can feel that I might have a response to a confrontation, but my mind might be like, you need more time. But I
Mm,
can feel the energies rising up to have it.
mm-hmm.
Um, and this is usually when I've already been waiting for a while. It's
Yeah.
not like an in the moment situation. It's like I know I need to have a conversation and I'm avoiding it because I know it's going to be uncomfortable, and somebody's like, hey, I want to talk to you about this. Do you want to talk about this? And I'm like, uh huh. But my mind's like, you're not ready. You don't have clarity yet. And then sometimes in those moments, it's just being really honest about how difficult the conversation is to have, to say, you
Right.
know, I'm really nervous to have this conversation with you because I'm afraid I'm going to say the wrong thing,
Yep.
or I'm afraid
And
I'm going to hurt your feelings.
that's calling it out and naming it right away. It kind of
Mhm.
it creates like this like softness in the conversation. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, we can just
We can just be
relax into this.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have to do that as a business owner, as somebody who has to hire and fire and, all of that stuff at work. It can be very difficult to, like, I have to say the things. And then I'm like, well, I don't want to appear weak. That's my ego. That's my ego talking. My defined ego. Do not, tribal leader, do not appear weak.
Hmm.
But it's like, no, this is really difficult for me. This is uncomfortable. I'm feeling nervous. I, you know, have to do these things.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
As a defined ego, do you feel like people try to push you sometimes, like poke at the ego?
Hmm.
I think the phrase that I've heard, I can't remember who said this. It's like defined egos get people kicking sand in their face.
Get people that kick sand in their
Kick
face.
sand in their face. Yeah, like imagine a child on a playground. Like people are gonna come up to you and like kick sand in your face and try to like instigate
Oh,
something
yeah.
with you
Oh, yeah. That
because they can
happened.
feel that you have the willpower and you have the ego. So it's almost like it's like me as a 3955. I get people provoking me because
Yeah.
they're amplifying my
Oh, yeah.
provocation.
Yeah. I mean, that happened this morning. Yeah. Yeah. It
Ooh.
happened. Hmm. Yeah, it did. And it was through text, and it was somebody who had to be let go,
Mm,
and they were just trying. I could
pushing
sense
you.
it. Yeah. And didn't work because I was like, oh, I can see, I just stayed neutral.
Yeah.
So,
I can see that what you're trying to push me.
yeah. Yeah. Or
Trying
you're
to get
trying to
me to
get,
prove it's like trying to
yeah.
get you to prove something
Yeah.
when
Or
you're like,
like,
I don't have anything to prove to you right now.
yeah, exactly. Like there was like some sort of like, wanting to, yeah, prove or get me to prove or
Mm.
say why it wasn't right,
Because that's something I've noticed just observing defined egos is how much people try to get them to prove.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't actually have anything to prove, that's unhealthy for the defined ego as well, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
because you
It's
can prove something doesn't mean you need to try to prove everything.
right. And I usually, when I can sense that, um, I usually will in not like a forceful way, but it's very gentle or it's very like how do I want to say it without going into all the
All
detail.
the details.
Um Basically this person was like, I don't think this is right, you know, and I'm going to need a letter, a termination
Mm.
letter
Oh.
and stating why they're right and I'm wrong,
Mm.
and so I sent it, and it was why they're not right. you know
Oh.
so
So you did have something to prove.
yeah, but it was just like a very like I was just like, okay, you need this, you want this
You want me to
letter.
prove it? I'll prove it then.
That's fine, you want this letter, that's fine. If you want to go try to get unemployment, that's fine.
Yeah.
Have fun telling unemployment that you left my business unoccupied while people were inside services. Have fun. You know,
Yeah.
like I didn't have to do it in a mean way. It was a nice
No,
letter. It was a nice letter, but
it's just stating the facts.
yeah. And so that's what it is. It's staying factual too. It's not, in nine-centered communication, it's being aware of the emotions, but also maintaining facts, like being able
Mm.
to have the facts be the foundation. And that's what in my experience with it, where the conversations are more potent, they land, there's no need to be defensive or take it personal or, because facts, they're solid, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I hear your feelings. I see how you're feeling. I see that this XYZ, but we still have the facts.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that makes sense.
we can dance in the waters of acknowledging each other's feelings and having emotional understanding, and the bottom, what's holding the water in the ocean, is the sand that are the facts.
Yeah. And I think sometimes the facts are even what somebody's the most afraid to say.
Right.
Like let's say because I'm trying to think of an example where there might not be as cold hard facts as there is in like a work situation
Mm-hmm.
where there is like kind of an objective view that you can have.
Mm-hmm.
But like let's say in a romantic relationship where it's like more strictly like feelings about things and like when you don't do this, it makes me feel this way and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But what if the fact is just that like it's something that's hard for you to say out loud?
Yeah.
What if the fact is that you're just not happy in the relationship?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if the
That's
fact is like you've changed and that makes me uncomfortable,
mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like people dance around the truth a lot.
Yeah, they'll dodge it. And that's when they
Yeah.
get defensive, when they're trying to scoot around the truth.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, let's go back to the facts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's going to be, and that's when you can even name it even more. You could be like, this is very uncomfortable for me to say,
Yeah.
but I'm nitpicking you about all of these things around the house. But I just think I'm not happy.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, that changes the conversation. That shifts the direction. Also, that takes away the blame,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. Cause I feel like there's a lot more to blame somebody about when you're really avoiding the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. And accountability.
Accountability. I feel like I think Vanessa Henry posted about this a while ago, but saying how that's like a primary thing of deconditioning
Mm-hmm.
and that feel like that was something that they were just saying they learned a lot from
Mm-hmm.
being in their process so far was being held accountable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually had a conversation with my business partner about something this week, and she was saying something. I think, you know, this XYZ thing is not working. And I said, actually, it's not that thing, it's me. I said, I need to take accountability for that because I haven't set up the ABC thing to make sure that XYZ thing is being done correctly.
Wow.
And she was like, oh. I'm like, yeah, so it's actually it's my deal. That's me. So
Yeah,
it's
because
just
it's
in
really
that
it's
moment when somebody's like, because I want there to be like truth existing, and
yeah.
I don't want to carry on these stories that people have about things or what they're seeing and not knowing all of the underneath stuff. And that's what it's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
you're seeing that this is not, this is kind of too floaty. Oh, that's because I was responsible for sticking the structure in there and I didn't do it. That's me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't comfortable for me to say that, but I didn't want her to have this narrative about this situation keep running just to like make me look good.
Yeah. Yeah.
When
Yeah. Yeah.
this situation, actually there was nothing wrong with it. It was something that I didn't do.
And if you wouldn't have admitted that, both of your undefined solar plexus would just keep going back and forth,
Yeah.
trying to create this narrative that's
Yeah.
not the actual truth.
Yeah, like that this is we get further from the truth. Like we could have gone on a rocket ship far away from the truth, you know?
Uh-huh.
And then that's also not good for our business, but it's not good for our friendship. It's not good for anybody else that needs to respond in that situation or work in that situation. And so it was like, no, it's not that. It's me. I'm the problem.
Yeah, I can really see how in certain situations, like I've experienced this working in restaurants, where um everybody's blaming like all of the employees or blaming each other when we're actually like and this is something Thomas, my husband's really good at because he's been in management for so long and he's really good at managing people. And he can see when it's the leadership's fault and not,
Yes.
and like the situation that's happening with the employees and they're all at war with each other, but it's actually like the leadership's
Yes.
fault. You
Yes.
know, where like he's
Yes.
pointed out like, oh, everybody's arguing about the schedule and everybody's like, oh, we can't find people to work on this day. And like people are all being like really nitpicky about their schedule. And he's like, well, actually, it's the person who was creating the schedule's fault because they set up a culture where they were just acquiescing to everybody's needs and not setting any boundaries. So now all these people think they can behave that way
Yes.
because the leader, we have to look to the leader. And it's like
Yes.
you can really spot out when there's poor leadership and how that's affecting like a domino effect, how that's affecting all the employees.
Yeah, that's another conversation I've had this week with my like head manager. We were just talking about leadership and role modeling. I was
Yeah.
like, we can talk all day long, to the staff about everything and anything, but if they see us doing something, like even me, I am guilty of it. And I was telling her this, I was like, I walk in there, if my phone's in my pocket, they're gonna think it's okay for their phone to be in their pocket.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
fucking terrible. I'm a hypocrite. I'm a 10.6. What can I say? Like,
Yep.
but that doesn't give me, just because I'm a 10.6, it does not give me the ticket to ride the hypocrisy train.
I know. And that's
You
something
know,
that I'm so
like
aware of with myself too, as a fellow
yeah,
10.6.
my definition isn't like a excuse for me to be a fucking asshole or to
Ooh.
be like, oh, that's a keynote hypocrite. So I'm just it's just who I'm gonna be. It's like recognizing like, oh fuck, like I'm more prone to being a hypocrite. Okay. I need to really look at my behavior as a role model. I'm also a sixth line and recognize that it doesn't matter the words that come out of my mouth,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah,
It's
and it's also I think not like I think this is a hard one because as a 10.6, we are going to be hypocritical. It's not something that we can necessarily fix.
oh yeah, but
It's
I
just like
can
in our design. But I think there's times where it's more important than other times,
well
you
just
know?
having the awareness of it in situations,
Yes, yes,
Yeah. And
exactly.
like
And just being like,
expecting, yeah,
I know I'm coming across as hypocritical. I'm owning my behavior right now. And maybe that's
exactly.
why you can't take me seriously because I'm being a hypocrite,
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
which it's funny because that's like such a big trigger for me too. Like when people are hypocritical, it like pisses me off so much. And then
Same.
I'll go and be hypocritical and I'm like, fuck. Because
Same.
it's really so hard. Like as 10.6s, we're here to observe people's behavior
Uh-huh.
and like kind of be this exemplary, like be exemplary behavior. But
Yep.
then that also makes us perfectionistic about our behavior, which we don't
Yeah.
want to be that either,
Right. Right.
And around we go.
And with that awareness that we don't like just, bypass with it, we need to take accountability for it.
Yeah. This is something that I hear about a lot in the human design space, just as like a fourth line who people talk to a lot in DMs and, is like that is something that is really triggering for people when people are using their design as a quote unquote excuse for their
Mm,
behavior.
hmm.
What do you think about that?
It drives me crazy. But I mean, I might be the only one, but I look at my definition and I'm like, how can this is my mind, but like, instead of an excuse for why I'm doing something, it's like, how can I express the highest attribute of that? I-
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Hmm.
Like, yeah.
And
And
also, what if we don't have control of that?
we don't. No, we absolutely, that's what I'm saying. It's my mind. We absolutely
Yeah.
have no
Yeah.
control over that. But like, if I were to be like, oh, I can, this is okay for me to do because I have, you know, 3410. I can do whatever the fuck I want and not have to
Because
listen to anybody, you
one could
know?
argue that that's also the mind, though, saying, well, I can do that
Saying
because I have
it,
that, right?
that's what I'm saying is like, it's not a mental thing. I don't think about my
Yes.
definition ever
It just expresses.
until something comes up where I'm like, "Ooh, that's not like a That's not like a good attribute of that. Like
Yeah,
that
but
can't,
then
that didn't, even my mind wants to tell me that that's like distortion,
right.
right?
But then that's where the self-love of all of this and the acceptance comes in
Mm-hmm.
is, oh, that is a part of my definition. Maybe that rubbed somebody else the wrong way, or that, you know, that's how that showed up in a conflict. Um, and I don't think it's necessarily like apologizing for our definition to people, but it's observing it play out and then reflecting on it
Yeah.
and learning about ourselves through
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But I think what people are saying when they're like, oh, people are using their definition as an excuse,
Like I
it's
can do
like,
that because I have,
yeah,
you
but then
know,
it's like that's your mind in the future.
mm-hmm,
You're gonna make decisions based on that
mm-hmm,
then.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
That's where it rubs me the wrong way. It's not that
mm-hmm,
somebody's designed a certain way. It's not that their design expresses a certain way. It's that when you say that, it it gives your mind an excuse to like latch onto it and say, well, this is like I can do this
mm-hmm,
because I have this. But it's like you actually don't know how that's going to express.
mm-hmm,
That's your mind's way of thinking that it's going to express that way.
mm-hmm.
Even like
Because
as a 3955, I could so easily be like my mind could say, well, I'm here to provoke people. So like I'm going to make people cry,
I'm gonna
or
be
I'm going to
emotionally
try to make,
volatile
yeah, I'm
all
going to
the
try to
time.
make somebody cry or
Yeah.
whatever. Um, but actually, I don't even realize it's happening when it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we make jokes on here about being
Yeah.
provocative.
Yeah.
We're just joking. I don't even really know if anything. In fact, I feel like we're very tame on this podcast. I don't know if anything we say is actually provocative. Um, it's funny because as a 3955, I see people being provocative to me more than I feel like I'm being provocative to them.
Well, in the 3955 is just about in like a lot of it is like in aura. Like
Yeah.
when you're in aura with somebody, it's your 3955 walks in the room with your aura and it starts provoking before any words even come out. No words need to come out of your mouth.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's not the it's not the words, it's not the speaking. It's the aura mechanics. It's what's going on
Mm-hmm.
in the
So it's playing out.
unspoken. And all and lots of people in all the designs. It's like that's where human design is like, we can mentally masturbate with it all day long.
Yeah.
But essentially it's just playing out. I can tell when a 3955 walks in a room because I hang out
Mm-hmm.
with them, a lot of them, and they do
Yeah.
I can see it upset people just walking into a room.
Yeah. Mm.
I can, you can feel when a defined ego walks in.
Yeah.
I don't need to be like, oh, I get to do this because I have a defined ego. So whatever. Like, no,
Mm.
I have to be okay with whatever my aura is doing. And then just know that I don't really have a choice.
And to play devil's advocate, even though the devil doesn't need any advocates, I can see how some people are really like trying to love themselves, and
Mm.
that's their way of trying to accept themselves. And so if we could have some compassion for maybe
Oh,
these people
absolutely.
that we see, and like trust me, it annoys me too. But like I'm also guilty of it where I'm like,
Guilty.
oh, well, I have 3955, so I can do this. Or like I
Mm-hmm.
have
Oh,
659, so I'm just gonna break this person's aura and like get in there. And it's like we can easily like you like almost like weaponize our designs.
uh-huh.
Um and so but I think about what am I trying to get at when I do that? Like, this is my personal view here, is like, I'm trying to learn to be more accepting of myself. And that's my mind's way of trying to love myself, even if it's
Mm-hmm.
from that mental place. That's my mind's way of giving me permission to be something that maybe I've never given myself permission for my whole life. Or maybe maybe
Absolutely.
when I was little, somebody reacted really negatively to this part of me, and my mind is attributing that part of me to that thing in my design.
And it's like it's a welcomed like relief and permission to be you, you know,
Yeah.
to find out those things that like, oh, I'm actually fucking designed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's the continuing to be like, well, I'm designed that way,
Yeah.
so
And I
It's a
wonder if
very
it's
different
just like a
energy.
phase that people go
Mm,
through with that, because that's kind of how it feels for myself. It feels like I had a phase of doing that where it was
yeah.
like, even like, this is a silly example, but even like on Instagram, you
Yeah.
know, I remember my mind being like, well, you have desire motivation, so you need to take a stand and you need to talk on this thing. But did I
Mm,
really have a response to speak on it?
mm-hmm.
No. And what happened anytime I did? I met resistance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But my mind convinced me, because I'm desire motivation, I need to speak on this thing because I need to take a stand.
Yep. Yep. I
But
did
I
the
have to learn that the
same.
hard way of like, what happens when I make a decision because my mind tells me I'm designed this way, so I should do it, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
designed this way, so I'm allowed to do it. And then I immediately meet resistance, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
immediately in a conflict with somebody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm thinking about this. The only thing I like mentally latch onto a lot is my channel of struggle, but that's my only fully conscious channel. But
So it makes
I'll be
sense. Yeah.
like, it's like right there, you know. My other stuff, like, I mean, if you've been listening on Human Design Coffee Talk, I might have brought this up before, but like Teresa and I were teaching a class, generate responding class or generator responding class, and we were going through the like what gates we have off the sacral and channels and shit. And I forgot I even had a channel. And it was at 10:34. And I don't even know. Like it's not like my definition is like I know what it is, right? But I'm just like I'm not I don't
I
know,
feel like
I'm
it
just
becomes
existing.
less and less important to know your design meticulously as you get on your way.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
like, I've heard this analogy before, but the systems are just, I think maybe Richard Rudd said this, like the systems are just a boat to
Mm.
get you to your life, to get you to
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
And not that, I mean, I know we're all human design nerds here. We love observing the world through this lens. I'm not ever going to just like let that go. Well, maybe, who knows? I can't predict the future. But at this point in time, I see it as so helpful. But at the same time, there becomes a point where you stop over analyzing every little thing you do
Mm-hmm.
and every little thing other people do. And you're just observing life play out. And you're
Mm-hmm.
observing the themes, of course, but you're not like, ooh, that was my 39, or ooh, that was my 659, or like
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, oh wow, that's really interesting. Moving on, you
Yeah.
know? And it isn't
Yeah.
something you need to constantly talk about.
Yeah. Understanding it helps you have more grace with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least that was for me, just being able to have more grace and understanding of myself. And so I can see it. I mean, all day long I could just, you know, quote my chart with shit that goes on. But I can see what I'm responding to and I can correlate that to one of the gates off my sacral.
Yeah.
I can see when I'm angry from the chest. And I know where that is. And I can see that I have no idea about things and how my head and ajna will just get hijacked. And
Yeah.
I can just watch it. But it's like obviously we get on Human Design Coffee Talk and we talk tons about human design, but in real life, when this 2 or 3 hour segment outside of life outside of this 2 or 3 hour segment, this isn't constant human design talk or looking at the world and talking about how this is related to that.
I think I would
I
go crazy if that, and honestly, when we go to the human design like the High Desert Human Design Conference, I'm like, I need like a detox from human design after a while.
mm-hmm,
Like,
mm-hmm,
because it's so fun and it's a bunch of us nerds and all
hmm
we do is talk about human design for that week or whatever. Not all we do. Of course, there's other conversations going on, but like afterwards, I'm like, I need to not talk about human design or
hmm
not think about it for like, my brain needs like a detox from it,
hmm hmm
because there's so much more to life than just human design. Like, I know human design is life, but to me, it's more my mind just trying to see patterns and trying to like use the system to understand life. And you can do like, the pendulum can swing too far with that to
hmm
where you're not really in your life because you're so obsessed with finding the patterns.
Well, and that's all mind shit, right? And you said human design is life, and I want to counter that with the body is life.
Yeah.
You know, it's a it's a system that shoots us in our bodies.
And if you're constantly looking for the patterns, and again, I'm guilty of this. So like, I'm just I'm teasing this out for myself right now. I'm curious about this for myself right now. Of like, if I'm constantly looking for the patterns, then I might even pigeonhole something into something that is, it's like I'm not allowing myself to be curious and open to whether that's really what it is or not. Like if
Mhm.
I'm telling myself it's because of this channel that I do this or that this person does this or whatever, I might not be open to how other things might express because I'm like already assigning it.
Mhm.
And then we're not really like in life.
Well, and then if you're not open that way, then you're not open to receiving the or being aware to the emotional intelligence and the emotionality in situations, which leads us back to that takes you away from being having nine-centered communication
Yeah.
because your mind is stuck on a story or a narrative that has to be what it is. And it's like, let's go back to emotions, emotional awareness, and facts,
Mm-hmm.
and just seeing the other. People just want to
Yeah.
be seen and heard. And you can
It's so
do that.
true.
You can do that in communion with them and also lay down some facts and also express how you're feeling or how something makes you feel.
I remember when we had a lock and on Diaz on Coffee Talk and something that he said that like I mean he said a bunch of cool shit,
He
but
did listen to it. If you haven't listened, go listen to it.
something that just stood out for me was I don't know what I asked him, but he responded to, I love talking about human design without talking about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, and ever since then, I've kind of made that as a, I don't want to like a challenge for myself.
Is
But
that your ethos?
yeah, it just kind of like, wait a minute. Most of the people that we engage with in the real world and not on like social media or whatever are not going to know about this. So, how can
Mm-hmm.
we use our awareness that we've garnered from the system to better our communication with people, to better our interactions, our relationships, whatever, without actually trying to get them to buy into the system?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where we see the impact that the system actually has because most people, upon hearing about it, will not buy into it
Mm-hmm.
and it'll just make things more confusing and it won't actually help the interaction in the moment if you're trying to over explain something to them that they don't or that they don't understand or don't want to understand, you know.
That's why we have strategy and authority. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Waiting, waiting. Someone please ask me about human design.
Gosh, as a 2-4, like Raw would call us, what would he call us, the missionaries?
Yeah.
Oh man,
Mm-hmm.
I made it my mission to get the good word of human design out into the world.
Human design
And
evangelist.
sometimes it's worked out really well, you know, if it's a person that really is meant for the system and
Mm-hmm.
it unlocks something in them, but I've also decided to wait more and um yeah, like sometimes I'll drop like clues or hints to people
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I'll see if they respond to it or
Mm-hmm.
if they have any kind of curiosity and if not, then I just let it go. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
they're not supposed to ask, you know. And I think it's a lot easier when you do it for work because people inevitably end up asking you about your work or whatever,
Yeah.
and you can talk about it. But even then, sometimes like because I'm a bartender, so I talk to people a lot. Like I don't have to force it to come up in conversation
Yeah.
if it's meant to, you know.
I had some body work done yesterday and the gal, her and I had exchanged a couple DMs, and in one of the DMs, she told me that she was a 1-3 MG, but I fully went into this session. I'm like, I'm not going to talk about human design unless she brings it up, or
Mm-hmm.
I'll wait for something to respond to. So I don't know. We're about halfway in, and she was saying something, and she's like, yeah, because I'm you know how it is being an MG, and there we go, you know,
Off to the races.
off to the races. But it was really cool because we could have conversations around about things like from that perspective, like understanding. Like she was talking to me about her partner and some mutual people we know, and she knew their designs. And I was like, oh, yeah, I mean, as a 6 line, that makes sense for him, absolutely. And oh, he's going through Uranus opposition. Yeah. And it was just this like pulled back perspective of where I could be more objective to like what was going on. And her and I were just kind of like in this field dancing and talking. And it wasn't, I don't know, it was wonderful. It was
Mm.
wonderful.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
nice when you don't feel like you have to get somebody to buy into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's just what I got really sick of, especially as an open ego, is like trying to prove that this is real or trying to prove that the system works. And I think
Yeah.
inevitably when you've kind of dedicated your life to it or you feel like it's part of your life's work, there 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 is a defensiveness there sometimes where you're like, at least for me early on, it was kind of
Mm-hmm.
like if somebody were to tarnish it or question it, then I would question my own life and I would
Mm-hmm.
question what I've dedicated time and energy to. And now I just like do not take it personally at all because I'm like, not, I know for a fact that the system will not help everybody and
Mm-hmm.
not everybody's meant to be able to take it in. And it's not anything against me personally, if that's the
Yeah.
truth.
And if people are skeptical but willing to let you see their charts, and Teresa and I have gone through um, um, human design chart analysis with James, so not self stuff. And so you could just like in like 4 minutes, you can just look and do like a really brief not self analysis, and they'll be like, "Damn." I'm like, "Yeah, yep."
But you know, somebody really has to be open to that
Oh
because
no, no, they do. Yeah, yeah. That's what I'm saying. Usually, I'm not like forcing that upon somebody,
yeah,
but they'll be like, "Oh yeah, is it real? Show me." And I'm
yeah.
like,
And then you're like,
"Okay,
well,
yeah,
let's
well."
look at your Achilles heels here. What's
Yeah,
your narrative, your mental narrative?
yeah,
Let's piece that together.
yeah, yeah.
Oof. That can be a dagger in the heart.
I know. Sometimes, I mean, that's the shit I love though.
Me too.
Like, that's the shit I love because it moves the needle.
Hmm.
you know oh, like we're doing that our hot seat thing. I don't actually know if there's any spots left right now. There was two earlier
There's two
today.
spots left, I think. Yeah.
um but that's our jam.
Hell yeah.
Get in
Yep.
there and like let's be productive. Let's move some shit. Let's shift some
Yeah.
things. Shift your perspective and gain some
Yeah.
new awareness.
Yeah. For anyone who doesn't know, we're doing a hot seat coaching on April 28th, and there's two spots left. If you're listening to this on
As of
what
April
day are we
11th,
releasing this?
I don't
As of
know. There might not be any spots left by the time we
yeah,
release it.
so
So
I don't know. We're probably putting this out next week, but we are gonna potentially be doing them like monthly. We're just seeing how
yeah.
this goes, and it might be something that we offer on a consistent basis. So, but yeah, we really just love to get in there with people. And Brandy and I recently did one of our friends who they've become a friend as four lines do. They were in our Generate intensive, and when we did the Generate intensive, Brandy and I really got to see how we coach together and see our different strengths playing out together and how they complement each other as well. And so this person knew how we
Yeah.
operate
How
together.
we
And
roll.
yeah, and they asked us if we would be willing to do like a 2-on-1 coaching session. And we're like, hell yeah. So it
Mhm.
really got to remind us just how well we work together and how much we love that. And we were like, hey, we've been having people ask us for months, when were we going to do another Generate? And neither of us feel like we have the capacity to do a full like program like we did to really dedicate that much energy to something. So this feels like a really good middle ground where we can just offer it when we want to. And, it's not as cost prohibitive for most folks as like doing a big program is too. So
Mhm. Yeah, we're also open to doing like 2-on-1. Um, and if that's something you're interested, you can just reach out to us
yeah.
and ask.
And
But
just
it was
know that we will get to some
you will
potentially
be
uncomfortable things. And that you kind of have to be ready for that. You have to be ready for wanting to look at how your not self might be still showing up in your life or preventing you from doing certain things, or even just preventing you from taking on a new perception of your reality or developing a new awareness. Because it's not even so much about like taking action or doing something, it's more
Hmm.
about your awareness.
It's like, what are you dancing around?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you might not even know, but when you're talking to us, we know. We like, it's just like, boom,
Yeah.
you know?
And it's really cool seeing. So I'm more of like um the emotional.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm the 659. I'm like, let's get to the layers, let's get like, let's talk about it. Let's tease it out.
Let
Let's
me put you
work
in
through
my
it.
womb and we'll
Yeah.
take,
And Brandy's like, I'm just gonna pop right in there.
just
Like,
gonna call it out.
call it out,
Let
call
me
out
call
the
it
thing that
out
we're.
real quick, and then Teresa can hold you through it.
And also, Brandy's like very business mind oriented. So if you are somebody who is either trying to do a business or maybe wanting to do a business and you haven't like, taken your first step yet, or you need ideas or just anything like that, like her mind works really well in that arena too.
Hmm.
And she's got the money line. So like this is something I was talking to our friend Tegan about the other day, like how interesting it is when undefined or open egos are coaching people on how to make money. And I'm like, me personally, I don't think I could. Like, number one, there's just no interest there. But number two, that's not in my life force to like, I don't know. It's just
Hmm.
I feel like it falls flat. And, we were kind of talking about examples we've seen of business coaches that don't seem to be very good at helping people make money. Like all the people that I see that are actually helping people make money have defined egos. I follow this finance guy. His name's like Ramit something. He has this book called I'll Teach You to Be Rich. And I normally am like very turned off by those types of things. But this guy, something about the way he talks about things and like he makes things very approachable for people. And um I don't know. I just really liked him. And somebody was talking about him online the other day and posted, I think it was Anastasia. I can't remember her handle. But anyways, I digress. She posted his chart and he has a money line. And I'm like, oh shit. Like
Yeah.
it just makes sense to me when defined egos can show up and like actually teach somebody how to make money or help them make more money in their life.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Or like just get in communion with the what money means to them.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I like about this guy. Like when he says I'll teach you to be rich, he talks about living a rich life,
Yeah.
but he doesn't mean
Money.
rich money wise. He
Yeah.
means like
Yeah.
like literally having a rich life.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
think that's what really turned me on to him because it's not necessarily about making more money.
Yeah.
It's really about enjoying your life and using money as a tool to do that.
Yeah. Absolutely. I
And that's what
agree.
it
As
is.
a
Yeah.
money line, 100%.
And I just feel like, I mean, no shade to open or undefined egos. Maybe there's ones out there that have developed a lot of wisdom there. I personally, I don't feel like I have that kind of wisdom there to be able to like help somebody in that arena, you know?
Hmm. Hmm. Or how to navigate interacting with money.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge thing for people.
Because my own distortions are still like living there in my open ego,
Yeah.
And if I were to try to like help somebody, I would be like coloring that with my own distortions.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
I
good.
don't know.
I really enjoyed that 2-on-1. Like it
Mm-hmm.
lit us up. It was like, that was fucking great.
Yeah. I think we just forgot. Like, I mean, it's been
I
like what,
know.
2 years since we've done our intensive and
I
like
know.
we loved it, but life be life
Life
and
be
you don't
life.
always
And
have the capacity to be like running programs all the time. And um yeah, that's just not like currently our trajectory to be doing that. So
hmm.
we're like, how can we still get this same feeling of satisfaction
Hmm. Hmm.
and
Hmm.
be of service to people who want to jam out with us?
Yeah. Because it's potent and powerful. I mean, with beyond human design, all of the knowledge that Teresa and I have and skill sets that we have around coaching, around energy, all of that. It's pretty cool to watch it all come together.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the chart is just our tool
Yeah.
to get to certain things,
Hmm.
just like our map, but then we have to navigate the map.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, well, do you have anything else to say about nine-centered communication or communion?
Yeah. Well, I was going to look at who responded real quick. Um, So give me a second. I'm just gonna. Okay. Zoe um messaged me on Instagram, and Zoe says it looks 900 communication looks like full truth regardless of desired outcome.
Ooh, I love
Ooh,
that. Snaps
that's
for
it. There it
Zoe.
is. That's it.
Ooh,
That's it.
good
Because
stuff.
what I see happening a lot of the times is dancing around the truth because you're attached to an outcome or a perception of yourself.
Mm,
And so you're controlling it, which is your mind controlling the thing. So you're automatically in distortion.
yeah, because you're trying to manipulate the outcome.
Yes.
And we have to be okay with it's like being okay with somebody being a sacral no to something and not trying to like manipulate their sacral.
Mm-hmm.
That's just an example of like, this is my truth. This is your truth. You're a no. I've got to accept that, you know,
Yep.
because I know I can't control the outcome.
I'm going to probably accidentally slaughter this next person's Instagram handle. Bart Barfotolive. Um, there's no first name on their page. So when I asked what's 900 communication for you, this person says, for me, it's Shoresy with an infinite horizon, meeting the other where they are and not where we've already decided or we considered or we want them to be. So there's that controlling the outcome again.
Ooh, yeah, yeah,
Listening to understand and not to respond, listening to meet each other and not correct each other's experience of life.
yeah. Gorgeous.
The old Rumi quote comes to mind. Beyond the ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field. I'll meet you there. Nine-centered communication is at that field. That's
Gorgeous.
fucking beautiful.
Poetry.
Gosh.
People are so
Yes.
smart.
Meeting each other where they are and not where we've already decided we want them to be. That's so good.
Mm,
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's because when I feel into that, what that means is I can stay in my sturdiness,
yeah.
you know, and I'm not gonna waver. I can meet them, but I can stand in my own.
Yeah. And I think again, it's also accepting of them wherever they are in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it is they're not self-communicating with you or their inner child part or whatever, their protector part,
Mm-hmm.
being like,
Mm-hmm.
well, that's where they are right now. And I'm not desiring for them to be anywhere else.
Yeah.
And all I can do is show up as me
Mm-hmm.
with
Yeah.
all of my parts and all of my not self and
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
And when there is that like acceptance of each other, you can tell Brandy and I both have acceptance sense.
Yeah.
We use that word a lot.
Yep. Yeah, that's
That's
beautiful.
beautiful.
Mm, that's a good place to
Delicious.
land.
Yeah, that was delicious. Thank you to, was it just those two people?
Yeah.
Thank you to those two people for contributing.
Unless I can't see anything else in my requests, but oh, there might be one more in my DMs. Hold on. Nope. I think we're
Cool.
good.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah, we'd love to hear your comments on this. Also, um, if you'd like to drop us a review on Spotify,
Oh,
holla.
yeah. Spotify or
Yeah.
Apple or wherever you listen. We
Yeah.
love it. Helps us
Yeah.
out.
Or yeah, ratings, reviews. On YouTube, drop us a comment. You're always welcome to DM us at Human Design Coffee Talk on Instagram. If there's anything that you want to contribute to this conversation or, just drop us a note. It's
Yeah.
open.
Awesome. Well, we'll
Awesome.
see you next time.
Bye.